Welcome to the DrNursePaul Show, hosted by Aspire RN and Dr. Paul. You are watching the USA Nurse Series. DrNursePaul is an NCLEX expert, having trained and mentored thousands of international nurses past the NCLEX RN for over a decade. He graduated with a Doctor of Nursing Practice in Texas Christian University. He is a registered nurse, an advanced practice registered nurse, and a certified family nurse practitioner. He also has completed a certificate for nurse educator postgraduate course. Aside from teaching, he has extensive clinical experience in emergency and family medicine. He has over 15 years of combined clinical and academic healthcare experience. DrNursePaul is an immigrant from the Philippines. He is currently based in Houston, Texas, where he operates his business, DrNursePaul, and Aspire RN NCLEX Prep. He loves to share his life story of how he overcame his challenges to reach his dreams. He is passionate in helping nurses realize the American dream. So without further ado, let's all welcome DrNursePaul.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Season 2, Episode 11 of the DrNursePaul Show, USA Nurse Series. Hello, everyone, to all our viewers that are with us today. Can you please tell us where you guys are coming from and what's your local time? I'm currently streaming from London, United Kingdom, and it's about 2 p.m. here in London. Okay, my voice is a little raspy today, but thank you guys for tuning in DrNursePaul Show. All right. I had to skip one of my tours today because this show is really important for me. And it's because I'm hosting one of my good friends. And this is a very important topic for nurses globally. And since we have watchers from 40 countries, from 6 continents, I want to share this important information about English examinations. We all know that immigrants nurses coming to English speaking countries like United States, United Kingdom, we all need English exams. That's regardless if we finish our nursing degrees in English. So very important, guys, that we are informed, we stay informed with the updates to the English exams. There are changes, there are new exams coming out. I couldn't keep up myself, but we have invited an expert today, one of my good friends, Sir Ervin, and we're going to talk to him in a bit. All right, and we have our viewers. Antoinette, one of our avid viewers, is watching us from Saudi Arabia. Thanks for tuning in. And we also have Ellen and Florence watching from UAE. Good morning or good afternoon. And she is watching from Jeddah. Sarah is watching us from Manila. Aloha. Aloha from Manila. Rosanna is watching us from Philippines as well. And it's 9:10 p.m. there. All right. So right now it's 2:10 p.m. here in London. And I'm over here to visit some friends, but I've also met a few of our nurses from Lefora, and I've recorded contents with them. I interviewed them, so I'm gonna post that in the near future, and very exciting for me to do that because it's the first time I actually traveled to meet nurses, and that's probably what I'm gonna do going forward. And I love to travel, but since I want to meet nurses, I want to know how they feel about their jobs in their current country. I think that's what I'm going to do going forward. Meet nurses to the cities, in the cities where I'm going to. All right. But anyway, guys, can you do me a favor? Can you please share this to your pages right now so we can reach more nurses? All right, if you guys can please share this to your pages so we can reach more nurses and tag your friends as well. The good thing about this live show or virtual show is this is recorded, which means that if they miss the first part or they miss the whole show, they can watch it later. So make sure to tag your friends right now. And thank you to all our viewers. Thank you for continuing to support Dr. Nurse Paul. I wouldn't want to miss this show for sure, even if I'm on a tour. All right. Anyway, let's welcome our speaker for today. Let me introduce him. Exactly 18 months prior to his college graduation, he opened his own business, 9.09er Review Center, when he was just 19 years old. For 16 years now, 9.09er has been officially awarded by IELTS IDP, IELTS British Council, OET ACE Testing Hub, and PTE Pearson as the number one English review center nationwide. Now, at 35 years old, Mr. Ervin Temporal supervises the 46 branches and 6 testing centers of 9.09ers with online enrollees from more than 100 countries in all habitable continents. Please all welcome to the live stage Mr. Ervin Temporal, CEO of 9.09ers IELTS Review Center. Good morning, Ervin.
Greetings to our global nurses worldwide. I'd like to greet my best friend, Miss Sarah Marie Margaret Palmas, and let's congratulate her, guys, because she recently passed her NCLEX and her PTE. Now that
Oh,
she has completed
congratulations.
both the nursing and English examination, she's on her way to her visa screening. So congratulations, Besh Sarah.
Congratulations, Miss Sarah. How are you doing, Sir Ervin?
Well, I'm excited for our nurses because people today are definitely benefiting from globalization. With
Right.
internet, with technology, we can reach everyone all over the world. 16 years ago, when I started 9.09er, nurses had to come all the way to the office just to prepare for these examinations. But now, even with their own phone, their tablet, their laptop or computer, they can actually engage in interactive discussions like this one. And to make this a little more interesting, we're going to identify a lucky winner who is going to win an IELTS Platinum package by the end of the show. But the mechanics, what about the mechanics? It's very simple. All you have to do is to get my attention, meaning to say, use the comment section. You tag your friends, you respond whenever I ask, you share this one, and by the end of our show, we're going to announce the name of the lucky winner. FYI, definitely I won't remember you if you're not going to use the comment section. So you have to keep the comments coming because I'm going to pick the lucky winner later on. And just in case you're wondering how you can benefit from this one, we're going to talk about the various English examinations that are accepted slash required in US, UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And this is ideal for people who are still undecided. And if I'm not mistaken, Filipinos are like that in general. We're fickle minded. Say, for instance, today you want to go to America. Then, upon realizing that it's a little bit cold out there, you want to go to, let's say, for instance, New Zealand. And when you go there, you realize that you're not that kind of person who lives in a laid back environment. You want to transfer to the UK, then you feel that over there the cost of living might be high, so you want to go somewhere else. Definitely, this discussion is for you guys. So, hopefully, you can tag as many friends as you can. And I'll begin by perhaps greeting some of our live viewers. There's Chloe Flores. There's Florence Kathy Bog watching all the way from UAE. And we also have Rosana coming from the Philippines. Thank you, Isaac Joseph Alvarez, for tagging Arij Teo de los Reyes. Okay, Dr. Nurse Paul, do we have questions for us to answer before we move on to the demo lesson?
Yes, sir. And anyway, guys, so there you go. Sir Ervin is gonna do a live demo class later, so please stay tuned. But he's also going to give away a scholarship today. So make sure you tag your friends, share this show, tag as many friends as you can. We're gonna wait for them to come in. This is gonna be an hour worth of show. And whoever participates the most, Sir Irvin will have the discretion of choosing the winner. Are you guys ready for today? This is very exciting. And um, to tell you honestly, guys, I'm an NCLEX instructor, right? But English exam is equivalent in importance in NCLEX because I've seen nurses that have passed their NCLEX but had to take many, many times to pass their English exam. So that also, like, adds up to the length of time, duration of their preparation or immigration to the US. So very important that you guys are aware of the different exams, what band score you guys need, and what are the strategies that you guys would need to pass. And for everyone, information, back in 2016, when I was preparing for my visa screen and I moved here in 2017, I enrolled in 9.09er. So that was when I needed to prepare for IELTS, and they were my review center of choice because why would you choose number two when you can just go straight to the number one, right? All right. Thank you, Sir Irvin. Anyway, Sir Irvin, let's start with what countries require English exams for nurses globally?
Okay, apparently there are a lot of countries in the world, but the ones that require nurses to pass an English examination are USA, UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Don't get me wrong, but there are also countries in Scandinavia, say for instance, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, where they require you to pass an English examination if you want to study or you want to practice nursing over there. Like what I've said, it's not just the 6 English speaking countries. If you are IELTS certified or if you have passed these high stakes English examinations, then you may qualify for more than 6 countries. Now, I want to reiterate that these countries usually offer working visa, immigrant visa, student visa, and even fiance or spouse visa. So, would you believe that? Even if you are not there to practice your profession as a nurse, you still need to pass an English examination if you're applying for fiance or spouse visa. Now, let's begin with these English exams. Yes, when I started 16 years ago, it was just IELTS, but now there's IELTS, OET, PTE, TOEFL, CELPIP. And what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is to give you an objective discussion. I'm going to share with you the pros and cons, the similarities and the differences, especially if you're the kind of person who is still unsure as to which destination to consider. So let's begin with CELPIP. Guys, this is CELPIP. Canadian English Language Proficiency Index Program. So, if you've noticed, the first letter is C, and that means to say Canada. Therefore, CELPIP can only be used in Canadian visa application, in particular, the immigrant visa. So you cannot use this if you are going to apply for student visa, but specifically CELPIP is for Canadian immigrant visa. The academic equivalent of IELTS, if you're going to Canada, is known as CAEL. That's CAEL, Canadian Academic English Language. So in other words, CELPIP is the equivalent of IELTS general training, whereas CAEL is the equivalent of IELTS academic. But how come there are not too many people taking CAEL and CELPIP? Because this means to say that your options are rather limited. Why? Because you cannot use these two examinations outside of Canada. So people who choose CAEL or CELPIP are those who have made up their minds already. They don't have other destinations aside from Canada. Now let's move on to the next examination, which is TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language. FYI, IELTS is not the oldest English examination in the world. In fact, IELTS was just established in 1989, but TOEFL is way older than IELTS. If my memory serves me right, TOEFL was introduced in the market in the late 60s. So yes, TOEFL is older than most of us. TOEFL is an American product, and it's owned by ETS. No wonder why most of the institutions all over America accept TOEFL. It's just that if you are a nurse and you are going to the United Kingdom, that now UK NMC or Nursing Midwifery Council does not accept TOEFL yet. Okay, I'm using the term not yet. And remember, I'm always accurate as of the time of recording in this. Today is June 10, and as of June 10, UK NMC does not accept TOEFL yet. In the same way, if you're a nurse going to Ireland, NMBI, that's the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland, NMBI does not accept TOEFL yet. The same thing is true for NZNC. That's New Zealand Nursing Council. It has to be IELTS or OET. So, excuse me. So now you understand why more people prefer to take other English examinations, because if they are nurses taking TOEFL, this perhaps might limit their option to the United States of America. Recently, we have two other English examinations gaining popularity, and they are OET and PTE, because just last year, August 2022, the United States of America announced that now they are going to accept OET, PTE, TOEFL, TOEIC apart from the IELTS. So guys, I'm sure most of you are interested in IELTS, OET, PTE, but let's take a look at the pulse of our live viewers. So now we have 42 live viewers. Will you please use the comment section and tell us which English examination do you plan to take? Is it IELTS or OET or PTE? Can you use the comment section? And because there is a slight delay between the StreamYard application and Facebook Live, I'll continue talking because your comments might pop up later. Now, if you're looking at IELTS, OET, and PTE, I want to let you know that you have to consider first what? The cost of the examination, because yes, for most people this is an issue, right? Okay, so how much is the IELTS exam? It varies from one country to another, so it's important for you to know where you're supposed to take the test, because some of our reviewees messaged us, sir, how come here in, let's say in Saudi Arabia, IELTS is not 12,350 pesos, it costs more than that? Well, that's because the cost of IELTS varies from one country to another. But for OET and PTE, the examination fee is actually fixed. Say for instance, for PTE, it's $220. But guys, please do not look at Google exchange rate. That's because credit card companies have their own exchange rate. So normally, it costs a little more expensive as compared to the Google exchange rate. For OET, it's 587, not US dollars, but Australian dollars, primarily because OET is an Australian product. So 587 Australian dollars. Once again, do not look at Google exchange rate. That's because Australian dollars is considered third currency. So what your credit card company is going to do is to convert from AUD to USD. So you're charged twice because from AUD to USD, it will be converted again from USD to Philippine pesos. So if you're going to ask me, so how much is 220 US dollars in Philippine peso? 220 USD for PTE in Philippine pesos, that's around more or less 12,000 pesos. What about 587 Australian dollars for OET? That's roughly 22,000 to 23,000 pesos. So there you go. I have just compared the three examinations when it comes to cost. I'm sure the others have questions like, what about the modality? Is it face-to-face exam? Is it online exam? Or do I need to go to the facility to take the computer? What about the results? How soon will they be available? Or what about the, let's say, combination of results? Can I combine two results for this country? What about that country? Do they consider, or do they have a grace period? What about the mode of payment? Do they require me to have a credit card, or can I use my GCash? All that and more we're going to talk about later on. But Dr. Nurse Paul asked me earlier if I'm going to do a demo. And I said, yes, all I have to do is to read the comment section, because from there, I would know whatever you want us to talk about in the next 35 minutes. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the comments. So for PTE, we have Nikon, Isaac, Grace, Glory. Okay. And then we have for IELTS, Rennie, Maria Teresa, Sam, Laarni, Kirby, Moy Pone, and for OET, we only have Shella Ocampo and Arlene Perez. So I think it's PTE and IELTS, which are considered to be the top picks of our nurses for tonight. Now we have 43 live viewers.
Right. And guys, let me just remind you that Ervin will be awarding one free scholarship for IELTS today. And the winner will be the person who contributes or participates the most to the live show. So please tag your friends right now and do me a favor, share this to your public pages, to your groups, so we can reach out to more nurses today. All right. So I guess Ervin, during my time, IELTS is the most popular, because TOEFL, I think, I'm not sure if it's a little more pricier, or there's not a lot of testing center that we can take the exam in. But I remember IELTS being popular. But now we have OET, which I've never heard before during my time. Of course, it's probably the last 5 or 10 years. But is there an advantage over the other as far as OET, PTE, IELTS, or are they equivalent in as far as how do you say that? The gravity of the exam, as far as preparation? I know cost can be a huge determinant for nurses, but what about preparation level and stuff like that? Are there any major differences in these things?
Okay, let's begin with IELTS, because this is the examination which most of you are familiar with. It's been there for the longest time. So
Right.
for IELTS, general topics. Like your first question could be, tell me something about your planned activity this weekend. And then the examiner is going to move on to another question. Now, what about the successful person you'd like to meet? The next question might be, so what's the importance of trees? Moving on to the next question, tell me something about a party you'd like to organize for someone. So as I usually put it in IELTS, you have to be prepared to talk about just anything. Now, moving on to the modality. IELTS, there are three ways on how you can take the examination. And number one is taking the IELTS on paper. Number two, taking the IELTS on computer. Number three, taking IELTS at home. Yes, you heard me right. IELTS online tests can actually be taken at home, but, okay, here's the big but. Not for nurses going to the United States, UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Because if you want to register as a nurse in the countries mentioned, then you have to take either IELTS on paper or IELTS on computer. IELTS online test at home was actually offered for the benefit of the student visa applicants. So if you're going to take the IELTS for student visa purposes, then you can take the examination at the comfort of your home. Moving on to OET. For OET, there's OET on paper, there's OET on computer, and OET at home. OET on paper is the most popular, knowing that it's available in most countries, usually every other Saturday, because OET as an examination is available twice a month. OET on computer is also an option. It's just that there are limited cities worldwide where you can take OET on computer. And a case in point, here in the Philippines, if there are 30 key cities where you can take the IELTS, for OET, there's just one city where you can take OET on computer, and it's Quezon City. So let us pray that OET is going to expand to other locations for OET on computer so that you don't have to travel all the way to Quezon City just to take OET on computer. And yes, OET at home is also available, but usually offered as an option for people who live in countries where OET on paper and OET on computer are not available. Now let's move on to the topic for OET. If in IELTS, it's about topics of general interest, but for OET, the topics are usually healthcare focused. Say, for instance, in the listening subtest, the recording might talk about the condition of the patient. And then for the reading subtest, the passage might talk about vasectomy or tachycardia or hypertension or left atrial enlargement, something like that. In OET writing, you're not going to write an essay, but instead you're going to write a referral letter endorsing a patient from one nurse to another. Say, for instance, dear community health nurse, I am endorsing to your care this patient with a diagnosis of this and that. So imagine that you are still working as a nurse when you are taking OET, because anything that you're going to hear, anything that you're going to read, to write, and talk about will still be related to the medical field. That's why occupational English test is for healthcare professionals. I, for one, am not a registered nurse. That's why I cannot take the OET, and I have not taken the OET. Now, what about speaking? If in IELTS, it's more of a casual conversation between you and the examiner, for OET, it's not like that, because for OET speaking, it's role play. Interesting. What role play are we talking about? The interlocutor is the person you are talking to, and your interlocutor is not your examiner. So basically, your interlocutor is just a prop. And the interlocutor's function is usually that of a patient or relative of a patient. Now, what about the OET examinee? Your role is your profession. So if you're a physician, then you are a doctor in the role play. If you're a dentist, then you are the dentist in the role play. But more than 75% of the OET candidates worldwide are nurses. Yes, most of the nurses are actually provided with plenty of OET materials on the internet, but you have to make sure that you check the ones that are officially available on the website of OET. Guys, what about PTE? If there is IELTS on paper, there's OET on paper, PTE does not have a paper-based version. So you have to go to the testing facility just to take PTE. Guys, I also want you to know that PTE cannot be taken at home. You have to go all the way to the testing center. So the question is, how come there are not too many people who choose PTE? Maybe because they do not live near Makati or near Cebu City. A case in point, in the entire Mindanao, PTE examination is not available. In the entire Visayas, there is only one city where PTE is available, and that's Cebu City. In the entire Luzon, there's just one testing center for PTE, and that is Makati. So what about the people from Tuguegarao? It's IELTS, which is available for them. What about those who live in the other side of northern Luzon, like Dagupan? It's IELTS, which is available for them. That's why, looking at the list earlier, you've noticed that not everyone answered PTE, because IELTS is still the most accessible. Also, one thing for you to consider, if you're going to take IELTS speaking subtest, you're basically just on your own talking to the examiner. But what about PTE? Okay, as I've mentioned, my best friend who's watching us tonight recently took PTE, and Apparently, in the speaking subtest, there are a lot of you, all of the candidates inside the room, right? So, what I'm saying is, in PTE, you talk to a computer. So, you're not talking to a human being. You are with like 14 other candidates taking the examination in one room. So, imagine if 15 people are going to talk all at the same time. Ask yourself, are you the kind of person who easily gets distracted when there are other people talking? If yes, then PTE might not be for you. But if you can stay focused, okay, still talk, even if 14 other people inside the room are talking, well, go for PTE. What I'm trying to say here is it's a matter of knowing the actual examination conditions in order to manage your expectations. Because for some people, when they review in a very quiet environment where it's conducive for learning. But in the actual examination, it's not like that. Because like what I've said, 15 people are talking all at the same time in PTE. Okay, so there you go. We have compared IELTS OET and PTE. Meanwhile, let's take a look at some of the comments. Maybe some people want to know something. So that's the one that we're going to talk about in the next few minutes.
Right. Guys, put in your questions in the comment section and Ervin will try to answer anything about English exams. But Ervin, I have a quick question. So is there a like how do I say that? Like a caveat with taking PTE over IELTS? Like you said about the computer thing, but are there any other advantage of, for example, taking IELTS versus OET or PTE?
Okay, so this is the part where we get to compare the three examinations. So
Right.
what I'm going to do for now is to mention the advantages of IELTS over OET and PTE, the
Right.
advantages of OET over
Right.
IELTS and PTE,
I think
the
this is
advantages
important.
of
Yeah.
PTE over the other two examinations, and the other
Yeah.
side, the flip side, we're also going to talk about their disadvantages. So as you can see, 9.09er is very objective here because we offer review services for all three examinations. So it's not as if we are discouraging you from taking one exam just because we're not offering review services for that. No, it's not like that. Let's begin with the main advantage of IELTS. Number one, examination is available every single day in Metro Manila. Guys, where can you possibly take IELTS in Metro Manila? Makati and Manila. 9.09er is the official testing venue, official testing center for IELTS in Manila and Makati, and examination is available literally every single day, Monday to Sunday. Number two, there are always available slots for IELTS because there are several testing centers. In fact, you can book for your IELTS examination even if you're about to take the examination 4 days from now. So today is June 10. Yes, you can still book for the June 14 examination. And this is impossible in other English exams because for other English exams, you have to book for the examination 2 to 3 months in advance because they have limited testing centers and limited computers. Now, I also want to reiterate that for the IELTS, it's the only English examination that does not require a credit card to pay for the exam. You have BDO, you have Metrobank, you have GCash. You can pay for your IELTS examination even if you do not own a credit card because for other English exams, you need to have a credit card. That's for sure. And because IELTS is the most popular English exam worldwide, you can use one result for up to 5 countries. So imagine you hit 5 birds with one stone. With one IELTS result, you can use it in US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all at the same time. So I say that's the primary advantage of IELTS. And if you're going to the United States, still it's IELTS with more recognition in the entire United States of America. Now let's move on to OET. For me, the main advantage of OET is that it's healthcare related. Please expect that you're not going to talk about tourism in OET. There won't be any discussion of space traveling in OET. And rest assured that whatever you are going to do in OET will prepare you for the real life, for the real world. Because the moment you work in a hospital in the United States or in a nursing facility in the United Kingdom, you're going to talk in English all the time, right? So imagine that what you're doing in the role play mimics what you're actually supposed to do when you are start working there when you are starting to work there as a registered nurse. Now, what about PTE? The advantage of PTE over IELTS and OET. Let me say that PTE is the shortest English examination. So in 2 hours, you are done with PTE. Number two, I also want you to know that the PTE results are released earlier as compared to OET and IELTS, because for OET, it's roughly 16 days. For IELTS, it's 3 to 5 days. But for PTE, usually the results are available in 24 hours. But because more people are taking PTE now, knowing that it's an alternative to IELTS, sometimes there are slight delays. Like sometimes the result might take more than 24 hours for it to be published. So I have discussed the advantages. Obviously, we have to talk about the cons, right? Let's begin with the primary disadvantage of IELTS. For me, the primary disadvantage of IELTS is that you'll never know what to expect. Say, for instance, in the speaking subtest, you've prepared for all of the topics, and then all of a sudden, the question is, tell me something about a musical instrument that you want to know. You want to know how to play. So, what if you've prepared for food or travel or gadgets, and all of a sudden you're going to answer a question related to musical instrument, right? So, for me, that might be one disadvantage of IELTS. Now, let's move on to OET. If you are going to take OET and you have not practiced nursing, say for instance, in the last 5 years or in the last 10 years, it might be a little difficult for you because the case notes in OET writing might be too overwhelming. And if you're out of the hospital for quite some time, sometimes it will cloud your judgment in identifying which information in the writing case notes are relevant and which ones are not. Because in IELTS, you're only given one topic and you come up with a 250-word essay. But in OET, you're given case notes, usually medical history of the client, 2 pages, and you are on your own to identify which one to include in the letter, which one is relevant, and which one is not. Now, for me, the main disadvantage of PTE over other English examinations, in PTE though, remember, you're taking the test with a lot of people inside the room. So for listening, reading, and writing, the common complaint of PTE, it gets to be noisy inside the lab. So even if you are wearing headphones, you can still hear the clicking, the clacking of the keyboards. And for me, this is not ideal if you are the kind of person who is easily distracted by ambient sound. So I have discussed to you guys the objective comparison of the 3 English examinations, advantage of one over the other, disadvantage of one over the other. Hopefully with that, it will help you decide which examination you are going to take.
So it's a matter of personal preference, Irvin, correct? Right, because there are advantages and disadvantages to each. Like if you're more clinical and you don't want to talk about, like Irvin's example, tourism, then you can take OET. But if you want accessibility where you can take it right in your city or just a few hours of a trip, then IELTS would be the best choice. Plus, there's more materials with IELTS. But if you just want to talk to a computer and you're intimidated with a person, since the clicking and clacking and all the ambient noises of people talking around you, then maybe PT is also the choice. So it's a matter of personal preference and also what probably your board of nursing will accept if you start applying. Because, for example, New Zealand, Australia, UK, Canada, and each province of Canada, each state of the US would all have different requirements. So best to check your board of nursing website first to know what they would accept. But in visa screening, Irvin, because I know nurses would all need visa screen. All of us from non-English speaking countries would need visa screen, and the visa screen requires not only the BSN or RN documents, licenses, and education, but also passing an English examination. So are all these exams accepted for visa screening purposes?
Okay, I'm glad you asked because IELTS, OET, PTE, and TOEFL are all accepted by
Nice.
CGFNS when you apply for visa screen. But let's talk about the passing score. This is
Fair enough.
important because this will help you determine which English examination you're supposed to take. So let's begin with the IELTS. If you're a nurse applying for US visa screen, what you need is a 7 in speaking and 6.5 overall band score. Guys, regardless of your grade in listening, reading, and writing, for as long as speaking is 7 and your overall band is 6.5. Now, how do we get this grade of 6.5 overall? 6 in listening, 6 in reading, 6 in writing, 7 in speaking. That will give you 6.5 overall. But what if you got 5.5 in writing? Can you still go to the United States? The answer is yes. As long as there is one subtest that's going to pull you up. So if your speaking is 7, your writing is 5.5. As long as your reading is 6 and listening is 6.5, the overall is still 6.5. You can still go to the United States. Now, guys, let's move on to OET. If in IELTS, there's what we call overall band score, in OET, there is no such thing as overall band score. That's why USA required a specific grade for listening, reading, and writing because there's no overall band score for OET. So for speaking, it has to be B or 350. Okay, remember the numerical equivalent, 350. For listening, reading, and writing, it has to be C plus, and the equivalent of that is 300. I repeat, there is no overall band score for OET. Now, look at this one. If IELTS only requires speaking and overall band score, OET requires a specific grade for listening, reading, writing, speaking. PTE is an entirely different case because PTE requires a specific grade in listening, reading, writing, speaking, plus the overall band score as well. So what about the per subtest requirement of PTE? That's 50. What about the overall requirement? It's 55. So if in IELTS you don't have to focus too much on listening, reading, and writing, in OET and PTE you have to devote equal attention to all 4 subtests because you need to get a specific band score for each of the 4 components if you're going to take OET and PTE. Now, here's a question from Richard Bax Charles Umlas. Sir, yung PTE, is it accepted in New York? Now, I'd like to emphasize that these 2 other English exams of OET and PTE are gaining more recognition and the list gets longer and longer. So I'd like to echo what DrNursePaul mentioned earlier. It is best that you double check with the State Board of Nursing because we'll never know if by tomorrow another state is going to accept OET. Then the following day, another state is going to accept PTE. So in the event that you are unsure, it really wouldn't hurt if you're going to contact or communicate directly with your State Board of Nursing. Now, Sarah Presnilio Whitmore asks, so which one is best to take? Remember earlier, I have given you an objective comparison of the 3 examinations. So guys, it's totally up to you which one you're going to take based on the recommendations I have given because it's impossible for me to impose, okay, go ahead and take PTE when you're that kind of person who prefers to take the examination on paper, right?
Right.
Or if I'm going to tell you, okay, go for OET, but you do not have a credit card or you cannot afford 22 to 23,000 pesos. So it's always a matter of looking at each of these. Remember what you see on the internet, what you hear on Lefora, or let's say what you watch on YouTube. These are details to help you decide, but it's not as if other people are going to decide for you.
Correct. So it's a matter of personal preference still. And I think we have a few more questions, Ervin. How long does it expire? Let's talk about expiration dates.
Okay, guys, for all English exams, and I mean all, whether it's IELTS, OET, PTE, TOEFL, CELPIP, CATL, or let's say all of these English exams,
Right.
the results are valid for 2 years. At least there's one
Yeah.
common denominator for all of these exams, and they have agreed that it's 2 years.
Right. And also here in the States, because I started applying for doctorate school a long time ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. If you apply for a university degree, whether it's graduate degree or undergraduate, and you are a foreign grad, non-US graduate, they would want your English exam in the recent 2 years. So I think it's the standard international code where, English exams should be within the last 2 years. And Moy Pony has more question. If you have taken computer-based exam, when do I get the rest? Because I want to believe that it is marked as I write.
Okay, for computer-based examination, kindly remember the following. If you're going to take PTE, the results are usually out in 24 hours, but expect some delays because recently more people are taking this examination. And what about for OET? More often than not, 16 days. And then for IELTS on computer, 3 to 5 days. But you have to double check with the country where you are taking the examination because as far as I'm concerned, the info that I've just shared is applicable for the candidates who are going to take the examination in the Philippines. Now, do not get me wrong. Yes, whatever we're talking about for tonight is applicable worldwide. However, there might be some differences in the availability of results depending on where you are taking the test. Now, here's an interesting question which I get to receive every single day. And I'm glad that this was asked tonight.
Right.
And what is this? Is it applicable to memorize templates in PTE exam? If I'm about to share, if you're going to allow me to share with you our technique when we first started as a newbie, a novice review center in 2007, that was when I recommended my students to use templates because obviously there are people who find it difficult too construct a sentence. But as time went by, the examiners of IELTS recognized that there are templates that candidates bring with them in the actual examination. And how do examiners know that it's a template? Apparently, the first line is so well written, it's uber sophisticated. And then all of a sudden, the English for the remainder of the essay is fractured, meaning to say the writing style is not consistent. So for some people, instead of just writing, the pie chart shows, the others write something like this, explicitly exhibited on the pie chart. So sometimes fancy language like that might get the attention of the examiner, but they are going to feel that, I think this is not consistent with the writing style of the candidate because there is a sudden shift in the sentence structure from the template to the continuation of the sentence. Now, what about PTE? For PTE, yes, you are not going to be assessed by a human being, but you're going to be assessed by a computer. But guys, I tell you, the computers are smart now. The moment they recognize something that they get to read regularly, it will be taken against you. So the question is, are you open to the idea of getting deductions simply because you are copying templates as recommended by TikTok instructors or by YouTube vloggers? Who would you rather listen to? The ones who are trending on social media or
Right.
the ones who have certifications as instructors of these high stakes English examinations and have been in the industry for 16 years? The choice is yours if you still want to stick to templates.
Very good points, Irvin. Guys, it is important to work with experts, all right? Because with experts, when you work with experts, you're not only like learning from what they're teaching you, you're learning from their experience. They are experts in their field. Irvin is an expert in English exams. Before, we only used to have IELTS as the main option, but now there's so many options. But if I were you, I would enroll in Irvin's course so I can consult them what course would best work for me because there's so much information. We're only packing all the information for 1 hour, but I'm pretty sure Irvin can talk about this all day long and all your questions are going to get answered. But it's a matter of personal preference. And I know a lot of nurses are complaining that English exams are much harder than NCLEX. Why do you think nurses think this way? This is not only with Filipino nurses, Irvin. This is also with our nurses coming from African region or Southern American. There's some sense of intimidation when they're about to take English exam, when in fact they can actually speak it or probably write, but there's sense of, oh, I need to be perfect for the English exam. Do we have to be perfect when it comes to like taking the English exam, or what do we need to do in order to prepare for the English exam?
Okay, it's like this. In nursing examinations, you have to be equipped with knowledge. That's why lectures are important. In IELTS, in OET, and PTE, yes, lectures are important, but there is something even more important than attending the lecture, and that is consistent practice. Why? Because remember, how are you supposed to enhance your skill? By using it regularly or by doing it regularly? The question is, how are you going to improve in speaking? By speaking. That's why effective immediately
Right.
you think in English, you talk in English, write in English until such time that it becomes as natural as breathing. I'm not telling you to speak in the same way that I do because at the end of the day, what US, CGF, and S is look at is requiring the nurses is not the perfect grade, right? I mean, in IELTS, you're not required a 9. All you need is a 7. In OET, you do not need 500. You only need 350. And for PTE, you do not need 90, but you only need 50. At the end of the day, with consistent correct practice, with a coach to guide you, identify the errors, and suggest some points on how to improve your delivery in general, then we can actually do it together. But I hope that you're not going to ask me if I enroll in your center, will I automatically pass? No, you do not put the burden on my shoulder, but it has to be us working together. We do
Together,
our
right.
part. We teach every day. We have a lot of resources to share. We are available for one on one coaching. But please do your part because our one on one coaching is useless if you are not going to book slots for one on one. And the Niner reviewees who are present here in our Facebook live session can attest that they can actually maximize the one on one coaching at Niner like literally every single day.
Right. And like that's what I also say to my student, like it's a partnership, which means I do my part and I'll do my best with my part, but you also have to put in the work. Let me help you, not let me make a miracle to make you pass. You still have to put in the work. But Irvin, we have a very similar model when it comes to doing our business. We're very hands-on, which I love, which is why I always refer my students to Niners because I know how you guys take care of the students, being a student myself a couple of years back. And we have the one-on-one mentorship, right? Which is what I love about Niners because I remember a few days before my exam, I did my mentorship counseling, one-on-one coaching with the speaking coach. And to be honest, it gets intimidating with speaking because you know that for everything that you say wrong or grammatically incorrect, inaccurate words that you're using, you get a deduction. But it's all about finding that level of comfort to where, yeah, it's okay, you got one mistake, but you got to keep going, because it's just going to make your score worse if you focus on that mistake, like being, it's conversational English anyway, so being spontaneous. So in short, while English is also, a test of your knowledge of the English language as far as tenses, creating your sentences, and all that. But it's also a skill, which means there's a kinetic part of learning where you have to practice the English language. And that's what I like about Niners because they're very interactive. I remember Brian, he would always put up this, okay, let's do spontaneous writing. How about we talk about this? And he'll write the topic and we're all going to write something and is going to ask us to say what we wrote, which is fun. I feel like, back in grade school, we used to do this, right? But when you're actually preparing for something that will be scored and important for your immigration, it gets very nerve wracking. And I know a lot of nurses would always complain English exams are much harder than NCLEX. To be honest, it's just because we don't practice a lot, right? Irvin, do you agree with that? And
Because
that's
practice is everything in English exams.
right. And that's what they get from Niners. If you guys actually check their curriculum, so many classes. I love it. Like I could sit in for, oh, you know what? Let me just brush up on my tenses, right? Or brush up on vocabulary. Maybe I need more additional words that I can add up to spice up my writing and I can get a higher score because it sounds so scholarly, right? That's what I learned from Niners before. It's so fun and interactive. It's not a lot of it's at the beginning people feel pressured because again sometimes English can be intimidating for them. People have these thought where they have to assume the accent right away, right? Like, oh, if I have to take the IELTS or OET for UK, I have to speak like a Brit. Or if I have to take it for US, I have to speak like an American. Is this correct, Irvin, or is this a wrong connotation? Like, do we have to assume the accent right away?
Neutral accent is what examiners are looking for. If you listen to
Right.
me, I don't sound British, but I got 9.0 in speaking.
There
Because
you
at the end
go.
of the day, it has to be understandable.
Understand.
Okay?
Yeah.
You don't have to fake it. You don't have to sound pretentious for as long as the examiner understands whatever you're saying. And I'd like to echo the importance of one-on-one coaching because here you go. Shout out to Sarah Marie Margaret Palmes, my best friend, because she maximized the one-on-one coaching in PTE speaking like every night with Miss Tel. And look at what she got. She got the perfect 90 in PTE speaking.
Wow.
So fortune favors the bold. If you're not going to go for one-on-one coaching, if you're not going to practice regularly, no matter how easy the examination is, you really won't get the target band score if you just wait for the stars to align. You have to do your part.
Perfect score. Wow. And Jackie right here, look, she aced her IELTS back in 2012. But she said she might come back to do it again in case she plans to go to the USA.
Hello po, Miss Jackie.
Right. Talk to us about your program, Irvin. What we do in Niners, the how classes are structured, like what we do for students with the Niners program.
Okay, so this is the best part post pandemic. Why? Before COVID-19, we only offered face to face classes in 34 branches nationwide. But during the first 2 years of COVID, we were left with no option but to temporarily close all of these branches and build an online platform from scratch. Yes, we have our own mobile application, we have our own computer delivered practice tests. So now you're going to ask, how come despite the competition, Niner is able to maintain its number one ranking nationwide for both British Council and IDP? Well, the answer is simple. We always innovate. The Niner that you know now will definitely be not the same Niner that you're going to encounter 6 months from now and will be totally different from the Niner you've encountered 6 months ago. We always keep on launching new things in order to spice things up. But 2023 is the year of our revival because since January, we have reopened our branches. And as of June 10, 2023, now we have 34 operational branches and 12 more are opening soon. So by the end of October, now we're going to have presence in 46 cities in the Philippines. So blended learning is the key. We offer face-to-face. We also offer online. And not just that, apart from uh, apart from our review services, we are also the official testing center in Manila, Makati, Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, and Cagayan de Oro. 6 cities so far. But are we going to stop there? For those of you who know me, I am nowhere near done. We'll never know if by tomorrow we're going to announce that we have a new testing center for IELTS, or you'll never know if by next week we are also recognized by PTE or OET as a testing center. But I signed some NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, so I can only
Right.
share those details for now. But one thing's for sure, we have a lot lined up until the end of the year.
There you go. So tune in to the social media pages of 9.0 Niners. They have more stuff in store for us for this year. I'm excited for the announcements. And the Niners is not only a review provider now, right? You are also a test provider, service center for IELTS and more exams in the future. Congratulations, Ervin. I've seen your journey. I've heard your journey myself when I was sitting for a class. You didn't know me back then. It's a large class, but I was there. And I'm so glad to be collaborating with you right now. And guys, just remember that Irvin is going to award a winner today. So please keep sharing this to your friends and tag them to the comment section. But Irvin, for my last question for you, what are the strategies or tips that you can tell our audiences today as they prepare for their English exams?
Okay. Spend less time on social media and spend more time reading because
Right.
reading is everything. The problem with Filipinos now, whether it's IELTS, OET, or PTE, we usually get low scores in reading because we love to ask questions. I mean, it's not wrong to ask questions. It's just that in the actual examination, there is no subtest which is asking, but there is a reading subtest in IELTS, OET, and PTE. Sometimes people complain when the text is too long. It's just that there's no way out because in the actual examination, you're likely to read like what, 700 words in just 15 minutes. So read, read, read. Please forget about K drama until the day of your examination. And when you're watching Netflix, please turn off the subtitles.
Right, right. And it might be a personal thing too, but reading is my highest. I got 8.5 there because I love to read. So reading is for me easier. And I remember in the class, you guys told us that reading and listening are actually easier because they're objective, because you get a score. The answer is just right there, right? Writing and speaking in IELTS, this is IELTS, this is not PT and OET, are subjective, which means your score depends on who's listening to you during speaking or who's reading your paper when you're writing. So if reading is your weakness, then yeah, read more. I guess stop TikTok for now. I know social media content
Agree.
can be very consuming, and you don't realize that you're there for 2 hours when in fact you should be practicing. It's a skill, so it's not only like learning the English language, but it's also practicing it. So the four domains of English learning, which is speaking and writing and reading and listening, you gotta practice all of them. So what I did before is I watched the BBC News, I watched CNN, just listening for how they would say things. That way I could also say it that way, like, or how they would use their intonations. Because Filipinos or different languages actually have different intonations. We might be saying something using the Filipino intonation, but that's not the intonation here in mainland US or UK, something like that. So that's also like for me to, oh, okay, because IELTS, I remember I took the British Council something. So this the listening audios were Brit, right? So hard to understand their accent when you're listening to a large speaker. But because I practiced well with Niners, I think I was ready for it. I think I got an 8.0, but that was a long time ago. Mine is expired a long time ago. But Moy Pony said, from now on, I will start reading because that is my weakness. All right. Thank you, Irvin, for this show. We are going to, this is recorded, guys, so you guys can still watch it. We are going to campaign this show because Irvin shared a lot of very important stuff. We're going to splice it so we can share it in our TikToks and Instagram Reels too. Because Irvin, like, thoroughly explained in such a short span of time the advantages and disadvantages of the three major exams. And I think a lot of nurses are still not aware of those advantages and disadvantages. So it will help you guys to really pin down on what type of exam you want to do. But at the end of the day, all of these are English exams. So partner, if you think you cannot do it yourself, because it's like I said, there's kinetic part of learning where you have to practice it and be with someone to guide you, to correct you, or to catch you when you need to be corrected. I remember Irvin teaching us before that it's not only about tenses, but also accuracy of words, right? Because I might be saying something, but I was actually referring to another thing, right? So that can take out score for you. So there's different stuff that you guys need to learn about that. Partner yourself with experts like Irvin. I know Irvin for sure. I can vouch for his business because ever since I started preparing for LCLEX until I finally took my IELTS, they've been very popular. And of course, they're popular not only because of the quality of education, but also of how they take care of their students. So that's very important for me as a business owner myself. I take pride with my business, with also the business owners that are really caring for their product, for their clients, for their audience, for their community. It's not only about, making money from someone, but also really genuinely and sympathetically providing services that could change someone's life. And Niners, 9.0 Niners have been in this business for 16 years. hundreds of thousands of nurses worldwide. Irvin was able to help that from a simple life that Irvin lived. You know, guys, Irvin can share to you his whole story. Very, very inspiring. One day, Irvin, let's talk about that, like about your success in life, because I just want to inspire nurses. Your story is one of those stories that I would always remember. But now he has touched so many lives, right? Hundreds of nurses and their lives have been changed forever because of his program. So see, you guys can also make a difference in your own little ways. So just keep paying it forward. And Asal said, yes, he's watching in my LinkedIn. Yes, need practice. And TSE, what is TSE? I'm not sure if I'm aware of this.
Okay, at one point in the past, you have to take various examinations. So there's TOEIC for
Ah.
listening and reading. You need to pair it with TWE or Test of Written English and pair it with TSE, Test of Spoken English.
Oh
But
wow.
no one's taking that route now because why take three different exams, TOEIC, TWE, TSE, when you can just take IELTS in one sitting or PTE and you're done in 2 hours. So no need to take TSE as a separate English exam.
Wow, wow, wow. So I didn't realize that before these are like separate examinations. That is probably nerve wracking to prepare for three different exams. But thank you, Irvin, for everything that you've shared with us today. And would you like to announce your choice of winner for the giveaway?
Okay. Thank you so much for being so participative and cooperative. But there can only be one winner for our IELTS Platinum package, and that's none other than Miss Julie. Okay? Please message me tomorrow because it's 10:11 p.m. here in the Philippines, and I'm about to go offline after this one. I'll respond to messages tomorrow morning. So, Miss Julie, please message me directly. That's Ervin, ERVIN, Temporal. Just look for me on Facebook.
All right. Thank you, Irvin. I appreciate your time for joining us today. I know it's late in the Philippines, but how can they get a hold of you if they want to avail your services? Where can they find you? How can they contact you?
9.09er is everywhere. Literally. We are on
Right.
Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We have our own website, our mobile number. We're basically everywhere. So all you have to do is to reach us in any of our social media accounts. But for Facebook, because we are on Facebook now, look for 9.09er IELTS Review Center FB page, the one with 207,000 followers. And right
Wow.
now, as in for the month of June, we have two ongoing promos. And what's promo number one? If you are undecided, can't pick between IELTS, OET, and PTE, we offer it 4,000 pesos only, and that's unlimited for life, no expiration, valid forever, inclusive of daily one on one coaching from Monday to Sunday, which is 9.09ers guarantee. But if you are certain that you want to take PTE and you don't want to take IELTS or OET anymore, we have a more affordable review program at only 3,000 pesos only for life and inclusive of daily one-on-one coaching as well. But here's the big but. By July 1, we're going to identify a free, or I mean, a lucky winner who's going to take the PTE exam for free. So you have June 1 to June 30 to enroll in our PTE program. And who knows, you might be the lucky winner of a free PTE exam, which we're going to announce on July 1.
There you go. So stay tuned and 9.09er social media pages and get in contact with Irvin and their staff members so they can help you with your English exam preparation. Thank you, Irvin. I appreciate your time. Thank you for collaborating this show with me. I hope we can collaborate with more shows in the future.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Nurse Paul. Thank
Thank
you,
you, Sir
Aspire
Irvin.
RN.
Thank you. All right, guys. And I'm going to see you again this Saturday for another show in Dr. Nurse Paul Show. We're going to do another case study, The Secrets of Next Generation NCLEX. This is going to be June 17. I will be streaming live from Copenhagen, Denmark, this June 17, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time or 9 p.m. in our folks in the Philippines. So please stay tuned. June 17, another case study, Secrets of Next Generation NCLEX. And For June 24, the last week, the last Saturday of the month, we're gonna do a show, Understanding Your Job Offer. We're gonna dissect job offers for immigrants. All right, this is gonna be part of the USA Nurse series, and we have more shows that are upcoming in the next couple of months. So stay tuned. Please tag your friends in Dr. Nurse Paul's page so you can get notified whenever we put events or live shows. But just remember, this is going to be all our Saturdays. All right, please sit in with me every Saturday. Mark your calendars. I will be live every Saturday. All right, thank you guys for joining and watching the Dr. Nurse Paul show live from London today. And see you guys next week. Bye.
You have just watched the Dr. Nurse Paul Show. Watch us live every Saturday, 8 a.m. Central U.S. Time. For more info about our future events, follow us on our social media channels. You can find us at Dr. Nurse Paul on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. See you next week.